Music in 2013 brought us unforgettable moments filled with classic hits from a multitude of genres and artists. These moments are seared in our minds as we look back on what was prevalent in the culture and in our lives when these songs came out. We all remember where we were, the memories associated with the music, and how it made us feel. But it wasn't just songs that captured our attention, it was albums. The albums that dominated 2013 were interesting, but one album in particular changed music and turned an icon into a legend.
Yep.
There comes a point in an artist's career.
I ain't even seen this video yet, but I said the same thing. When Beyonce dropped that out of nowhere self-titled Beyonce album, done. There's no more competition. Before that, you know, she was kind of in the same category as, you know, Katy and Gaga. Then before that, she was up against, you know, like the A. Marie's, Jennifer Lopez, even like up against Ashanti when she did her first album. After she dropped that self-titled Beyonce, ain't nobody else in that category no more. She by herself. Like it just completely, it was over after that. Like and there was a video for every song. Anyway, let me go ahead and finish the video. I just wanted to say that because I was thinking the same thing about just how, you know, the trajectory of her career and everything. I was like, after that self-titled, it was legend. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, let's continue.
Where they go from an icon to a legend. A special moment in history that changes their career and music forever. From the likes of Michael Jackson and Madonna to Prince and Whitney Houston, certain artists have pushed the boundaries of music, ushering a new landscape for newer artists to thrive in. Since the turn of the 21st century, several artists have already emerged and made their mark on music and pop culture as a whole. Some have made waves bigger than others, but on today's episode, we're paying special attention to none other than Beyonce. Beyonce at this point needs no introduction. She's been in the spotlight for decades, from her time as the frontwoman of Destiny's Child to her own impressive solo career that speaks for itself. From headlining the Super Bowl twice, to breaking records with Grammy wins, to exemplifying what it means to be a live performer.
I love that performance.
She's never been a stranger to pushing boundaries as she continues to change the game in different ways. On December 13th, 2013, music was never the same as Beyonce stopped the world with her surprise visual album that no one saw coming. Packed with 14 songs and paired with 17 music videos, Beyonce closed the year with a bang, while taking a creative risk that could have very well backfired. The album represented a shift in Beyonce going forward that would lay the groundwork for some of her most important work and establish her as the legend she is today. On this episode, we're focusing on Beyonce's 2013 surprise visual album, Beyonce. We'll discuss the album and its meaning in the context of Beyonce's career and how it impacted music and pop culture at large. This is how Beyonce's surprise album changed music. In order to understand the impact of Beyonce's visual album, we have to understand who Beyonce was leading up to the album's release and the mechanisms in place that allowed the album to exist in the first place. Let's rewind a little bit. Beyonce, after much success with Destiny's Child, finally broke off and went solo in 2003. Carefully managed by her father, Matthew Knowles, she immediately established herself as a force to be reckoned with her debut single, Crazy in Love. The pressure to release a single has to be immense, but imagine releasing a classic as your first single. Sheesh.
And they told her, I mean, I'm sure y'all know, they told her she didn't have no hits on her first album. The label told her that, and she ended up having like 4 or something like that. When you trust yourself and your instincts and you just know what's gonna work, you just know. She just knew. I don't care what y'all said. Sometimes you just really gotta cancel out what people saying, man.
The song was an immediate cultural phenomenon and stayed at the top spot for 8 weeks. Her debut album, Dangerously in Love, gave us hits like Naughty Girl, Me, Myself, and I, and of course, Baby Boy. An important aspect to mention during this time is the promotion of the album. In the lead up to the album, Beyonce employed what has become to be known as the traditional album rollout. A traditional album rollout is when an artist promotes their upcoming album for an extended period, usually beginning with the lead single. Released 1 to 2 months before the album, a lead single is a song that creates buzz and gives a sneak peek into what the album has in store. Usually the single is promoted to radio, and in the weeks leading up to the release of the album, the song is then performed many times as the artist makes the usual rounds at radio stations, morning shows, daytime shows, late night shows, and commercials.
Dang, remember when Beyonce used to actually do interviews and TV shows? She got to the point where she was like, yeah, no, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that no more. Like, I love it. We all know she's an introvert anyway. So it's like, I know she probably was like, yeah, no, I don't want to talk to y'all. I'm with it.
It was to generate hype for the artist to maximize the amount of album and single sales. During this time, an artist may premiere a music video, tease a feature or track list, or even grace us with an album cover. Usually, a release date is announced and fans are left to agonizingly wait for new music to arrive. Labels shell out large amounts of money on promo and billboards to ensure that you know when their artist has an album coming out.
I remember that commercial.
Notably, the traditional album rollout was susceptible to leaks. This era was most popular during the time where people were still purchasing physical CDs, so it wasn't uncommon for whole projects to be leaked days and sometimes weeks before an album drop. This would greatly affect first week sales, and some artists would be forced to push up their release dates to further stop damage to their sales. The traditional album rollout has been a staple in the music industry since, well, forever. It's not until recently that more artists have begun to embrace different ways to release their music, but let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. So during the promo run for Beyonce's first album, she made the usual stops at late night shows and gave several performances at various televised events. In Beyonce's interview, she came off as pleasant, composed, safe, mature, humble,
for sure,
but also very private.
I know you say I don't talk about my personal life because if I did, I wouldn't have one. But can't you just at least tell me if you have a boyfriend, for crying out loud? I'm not going to ask if he's a good kisser or, you know, what you've done together, anything like that. But, I mean, are you dating anyone?
you already know my answer, Kate.
Oh, come on, Beyonce. You know, otherwise people are just going to speculate. They're going to be rumors. Why don't you just say I'm seeing somebody and I like him or whatever?
Because it's not.
And his name is Jay-Z.
You're very good. She's very good, everyone.
In an industry where celebrities feel the need to connect to their audience, often by revealing a lot about themselves, Beyonce from an early age made it imperative to keep her personal life to herself, no matter how hard the media tried to pry it out of her. Audiences love Beyonce.
I respect that. I can relate to that. I respect that. I'm private as well. I'm an introvert as well, believe it or not. But I love that. You know, you can pick and choose what you want people to know and things you want to keep to yourself.
Performer, but there became an increasing desire from fans to get to know the real Beyonce and not just the extremely polished veneer we see on the outside. More on this later. The onslaught of heavy promo worked well for her, as the album debuted at number 1 with 317,000 units sold in its first week and 11 million units sold worldwide, en route to earning Beyonce 5 Grammys at the 2004 Grammy Awards. All of this proved Beyonce wasn't just a singer branching off from a girl group to go solo. No. She was letting the world know that she was a force to be reckoned with.
I was just gonna say,
Not too bad for a debut album. After getting solid footing with her first album, Beyonce set forth for her next album called B-Day. Recorded in just 2 weeks, the album was released 3 days prior to her 25th birthday on September 1st, 2006. The album saw Beyonce taking more strides artistically as an artist. The album featured more live instrumentation, 70s funk and R&B elements, as well as bounce. She released visuals for every song on the album. Yes, videos for every song on the album. This era was important because it was Beyonce's first attempt at establishing herself as a visual artist. The album gave us monster hits such as Irreplaceable, Ring the Alarm, Deja Vu, and of course, Beautiful Liar. Using the same traditional album rollout, she made the usual obligatory stops at various...
I'm so mad. Have we ever got Beyonce and Shakira performing that song together? Because when that came out, boy, I was in a dance group at the time. You know, we had used that. I don't know if there's any performances of them doing that together. Like, oh man, like Shakira and Beyonce.
Shows.
And then the way they were switching their faces in the video. That was dope.
And continued to promote the album by performing, well, everywhere. If Matthew Knowles knows one thing, he knows how to get his daughter booked and busy. And boy, was she ever during this era. The album sold 541,000 copies in its first week and showed that Beyonce was capable of even more growth as an artist. Now, if Beyonce was capable of more growth, she sure showed it in her next era. And here we have 2008's I Am Sasha Fierce. Beyonce's next album arguably catapulted her to icon status. Wanting to capitalize on her commercial appeal, she created an album to appease, well, everyone. This album saw Beyonce creating an alter ego for herself named Sasha Fierce. Here, she created a duality for herself. An album that on one side featured more stripped down ballads, and on another side full of fun and sexy songs that can be played in the clubs. The decision to create a body of work like this reeks of a desire to appeal to everyone, and Beyonce did just that. Instead of trying to appease fans who preferred one style over another, she played to both sides by giving them a little of both. This album arguably turned Beyonce into Beyonce, a certified global superstar. Singles such as If I Were a Boy, Diva, Halo, Ego, and even Sweet Dreams were fan favorites, but the song that defined this era was none other than Single Ladies. Single Ladies instantly became one of Beyonce's signature songs. The simple black and white video with energetic choreography broke the internet before breaking the internet was a thing.
Right.
Everyone and their moms attempted to learn the choreography and upload their dance to YouTube. In many ways, it was one of the first viral sensations that swept the nation. Some even say,
but Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
And by the way, Beyonce has the most viewed video on my channel of all time. Out of 200 and some videos, that Beyonce reaction is number one, baby, as expected.
More on that in a future video. Beyonce took promotion into overdrive by appearing on every talk show and every award show you could think of while embarking on her I Am World Tour. In many ways, it was Beyonce's most commercially successful era. The extensive press tour and performance schedule was grueling, but it was par for the course when it came to traditionally marketing an album. The album was certified double platinum as Beyonce went on to earn her first nomination for Album of the Year and took home a record 6 Grammys at the 2010 ceremony, the most ever in one night for a female artist. The next era arguably is the most pivotal in Beyonce's career. If I Am Sasha Fierce was considered Beyonce's commercial peak, her next album 4 would unfortunately be considered her commercial disappointment. After touring her previous album, Beyonce took a break from music to live life. During this time, she severed professional ties with her father, Matthew Knowles, and began managing herself. She wanted to take a different...
That's when she start wilding out, boy. I love it. She was like, all right, daddy, you've had your reign. You've had your season. Let me handle this now.
Approach with this next album and distance herself from the commercial and radio-friendly songs she was making at the time. In an interview with Complex Magazine, she stated, "Everything sounds the same on the radio. With 4, I tried to mix R&B from the 70s with 90s rock and roll and a lot of horns to create something new and exciting." When we think about it, was Beyonce right about everything sounding the same on the radio at the time? In 2011, music was, well, in a weird place. EDM was taking over the charts, and many artists were jumping on the trend. LMFAO was party rocking all over the charts, J-Lo and Pitbull were on the floor, Lady Gaga was Born This Way, and Rihanna was finding love. Meanwhile, Beyonce stayed true to who she is and forged ahead her way. Her album 4 skirted away from commercial trends.
You can't follow the crowd when you're an icon and you're a legend. You set the trend. Just like now, how she made this dance album. And before, there's a lot of R&B out right now that's a little introverted, laid back. Now, if you see people start dropping dance R&B albums all of a sudden, we know where it came from.
It was an R&B album released during a time where people wanted to hear anything but that. 3 weeks before the album was released, 4 was leaked in full. Executives at Columbia became worried that the album would underperform, and for Beyonce's standards, it did. The album sold 310,000 copies in its first week, debuting at number 1, and it became Beyonce's lowest first week sales debut. Most notably, 4 became Beyonce's first album to not feature a number 1 single. Speaking of singles, 4 featured some of Beyonce's signature songs: Run the World, Countdown, Party, End of Time, and the fan favorite Love on Top, which she performed at the 2011 VMAs while creating a pop culture moment when she revealed that she was indeed pregnant.
Baby
The
number
VMAs
one.
was one of many places Beyonce went to promote the album. Per usual, she made all the rounds on talk show after talk show after talk show, using the same promotional method that everyone else used. This would be seen as the last era in which Beyonce would give sit-down interviews, as she had grown tired of the process. This era for Beyonce became a turning point. She no longer cared about chart success and was instead focusing on her legacy and making the art that she wanted to make.
You gotta respect that. You have to respect not letting go. Okay, this isn't gonna be a commercial success, but I really feel led to do this. I have to do this creatively. This is where I'm at right now. You gotta respect that, man.
Although the album wasn't as commercially successful as her previous works, it was an album that she was proud of and marked a transition for her that would change the course of her career. Over a year after giving birth to her daughter Blue Ivy, it was announced that Beyonce would be headlining the Super Bowl halftime show in 2013. Fans were excited because typically following the announcement of a headliner, an artist will usually drop a single or tease an album, but that didn't quite happen. Beyonce went on to shut down the Super Bowl literally as she performed her biggest hits in a sort of culmination of her career. She of course brought together Destiny's Child for a reunion and gave what is considered one of the greatest halftime shows of all time. After the performance, fans were expecting Beyonce to announce a new album or release a single, but that didn't quite materialize. Instead, Beyonce announced that she'd be going on tour, and later that month, she released a personal HBO documentary titled Life is But a Dream. In the documentary,
I got this on DVD.
viewers get a peek into the behind-the-scenes life of Beyonce as she prepared for the release of her album 4 and anticipated being a mother for the first time. An important part of the documentary that still gets talked about today is a section where Beyonce talks about the state of the music industry.
People don't make albums anymore. They don't make albums. They just try to sell a bunch of little quick singles and they burn out and they put out a new one and they burn out and they put out a new one. People don't even listen to a body of work anymore.
She was expressing her frustrations about an industry that seems to be more focused on charts and singles instead of creating memorable bodies of work with the focus being on the album. Her frustrations were more than valid given the state of music in 2013. The industry in 2013 was, well, let's take a look. Drake was starting from the bottom, Taylor Swift was feeling 22, Robin Thicke was blurring the lines of consent, Daft Punk was getting lucky, Miley Cyrus was wrecking balls, and Lorde was changing the shape of pop music with Royals. In the meantime, Beyonce was waiting in the wings to release a body of work that would give the industry the change it was looking for. And on December 13th, 2013, she did just that.
12, 13,
At the crack of dawn, with no prior
Boom,
announcement or
dropped it.
promotion, Beyonce dropped her 5th studio album, Beyonce. The album was immediately met with mass hysteria, tweets, excitement, and utter shock. Not only did fans get a new album, they also got 17 music videos to go along with it. They got it all via iTunes. Beyonce just released the album and let us all do the promo for her.
Yep.
Interspersed with clips and images from her childhood, Beyonce was more personal than ever.
She said, "Here
The
y'all
album
go."
was a visual concept album that broached uncharted territory for Beyonce, with topics like sexuality, feminism, infidelity, motherhood, and even cunnilingus explored on the album. Beyonce went harder in a completely new direction. Sure, she's always been sexy, but Beyonce displayed a raw, more intimate version of herself that got fans excited even more. Gone were the moments where Beyonce closed the public off from her relationship. In songs like Drunken Love, she openly discussed the couple's drunken escapades on the beach. In comparison to her previous work, the self-titled album was bold as opposed to safe, trend-setting as opposed to trend-chasing, and unforgettable as opposed to forgettable. Take a look at Beyonce's prior album covers. All of them are beautiful, yes, but they're all in the vein of what we'd expect from a Beyonce album. Beautiful cover with Beyonce prominently displayed on the album. With the self-titled album, it's completely different. It's a simple black background with pink text
Boom.
displaying
Just my
her name. By the looks of it alone, it shows a more complete departure from what Beyonce's done in the past, and the album certainly delivered on that front. She worked with new collaborators and producers to craft an album that was a middle finger to her previous work and to the music industry. With the success of the release, she added to her legacy by doing something that no other artist dared to do. The album was a sonic departure from her previous works, as she opted for experimental and immersive sounds that gave the album a unique vibe. Songs like Drunken Love played with elements of dark R&B that we'd see later in artists like The Weeknd with songs like The Hills. Album releases being a huge event is something that Beyonce missed about albums from older generations. So she gave us an album that we would never forget. Music publications, news outlets, magazines, and fans praised her artistic endeavor, and the album received glowing reviews, becoming the highlight of 2013. The album, which was initially an iTunes exclusive, debuted at number 1 with 617,000 units sold in just 3 days of tracking in the US. After 3 days of availability worldwide, the album sold 828,000 copies, becoming the fastest selling album in iTunes history and becoming certified double platinum by the end of its run. It became Beyonce's 5th consecutive number 1 album on the Billboard 200, showing that no promo means no problem for Beyonce. Part of the album's sales success is due to the fact that individual singles could not be purchased. In order to hear individual songs, one had to purchase the entire album in order to hear the full project the way Beyonce intended. Beyonce's surprise release sent shockwaves throughout the industry, but contrary to popular belief, she actually wasn't the first modern-day artist to drop a surprise album. In 2007, after leaving their label, Radiohead announced on their blog that their new album In Rainbows would drop in 10 days. They then posted a link to the album where fans could pay any amount of their choosing to download the new music. This instance was the first time an artist of this caliber uniquely released an album in this way. Radiohead was the first, but they certainly wouldn't be the last. When it comes to Beyonce's surprise album, it's not about when she did it, but about how she did it. Keeping the album under wraps was one thing, but the execution of the release was another. She may not have been the first, but what Beyonce's album did was popularize the idea of a surprise album. Beyonce used the goodwill and industry respect she'd built up over a long career, and probably the use of many non-disclosure agreements.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I know Beyonce got NDAs in her back pocket, just on a regular. Man.
The album secret and create a project that deviated from her past work. The album was dropped on a Friday when the traditional music release day was on a Tuesday. After seeing the album's success despite the limited window to gain additional sales, it's hard not to argue that Beyonce was a major influence in the music industry, shifting the music release day from Tuesday to Friday.
I love it much better too. When they shifted to Friday, I liked music dropping on Fridays.
This channel was made to dive deep into topics in an interesting and honest way. Part of that honesty comes with acknowledging that not everyone could release an album the way Beyonce did and achieve the same level of success.
Right.
Sure, the goodwill and trust she'd built up with her fan base helped her, but a big reason why the surprise album worked so well is because, well, it was released by Beyonce. The bigger the artist, the more impact a surprise album generates. The release strategy was a risk, but how big a risk is it when one of the biggest artists in music drops an album? It's not enough to just release an album, but the content itself has to be good enough to sustain past the initial hype and surprise.
It's gotta be amazing.
And Beyonce did just that. Only a select few artists have the ability to release an album with no promotion, using only the hype of their name, the internet, and their credibility to sell an album. This, of course, doesn't take away from Beyonce's success, but it's something worth noting.
Yeah.
In the years following the release, several artists released their own surprise albums with little or no prior announcement. In 2020, Taylor Swift, who's been known for extensive album rollouts, decided that in a pandemic when people were stuck at home, it was time for something different. So she released her 8th studio album, Folklore, giving her fans just a 16-hour window before the album was released that midnight. Everyone from Drake with If You're Reading This It's Too Late, Miley Cyrus with Miley Cyrus and Her Dead Pets, Eminem with Kamikaze, Kid Cudi, D'Angelo, U2, and more all tried their hands at surprise albums with varying results.
Yeah.
It's safe to say that Beyonce inspired these artists to ditch the tried and true method of releasing an album in favor of something more experimental and exciting. Instead of spending money on elaborate rollouts and month-long promotional tours, artists began to entertain saving money on the rollout of the album and instead putting the extra money into the album itself. Apart from surprise releasing, self-titled pushed other artists to control their narrative creatively. Beyoncé's emphasis on visual storytelling opened up the floodgates for other artists to try their hand at using the visual medium to support their music. These videos served as a way to emphasize an album as a full body of work that has to be seen as well as heard. Several artists took a page from Beyoncé's book to include cohesive visuals in their projects. Janelle Monáe released a 48-minute emotion picture in 2018 to support her acclaimed album Dirty Computer. Solange directed and edited a 33-minute film to go along with her 2019 album When I Get Home. In 2021, Halsey released a feature film alongside her album If I Can't Have Love, Give Me Power. In 2021, Casey Musgraves released a visual companion film to go along with her album Star-Crossed. In 2020, The Weeknd released a short film that continued the album's storyline in a compelling way for the release of his album After Hours. And Beyoncé herself followed up her self-titled album by further establishing herself as a visual artist with 2016's earth-shaking masterpiece Lemonade and her visual album Black is King, released in 2020. In 2015, Beyoncé was nominated for 5 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year, for her surprise album. For the year she had in 2013 and 2014, she was widely expected to take the top prize of the night, Album of the Year. In pure Grammy fashion, however, she lost Album of the Year to Beck's Morning Phase. Many pundits were stunned at how an album that pushed the bounds of music and artistry was snubbed. But at the end of the day, the Grammys and other award bodies don't determine or represent.
I was just about to say, do anybody look at a Grammy like they used to look at it? Because I know I don't. Grammys used to be like, you got a Grammy, like that's validation, can't nobody say none of you. But it's like now, it's just like a little bonus award. Like, oh, you got a Grammy, that's what's up. But it's not like, oh, if you don't get a Grammy, you ain't nothing. Like, it's like, yeah, it don't really work like that no more.
Cultural impact. People do. When we think of Beyonce's self-titled album, we think of an artist evolving and pushing our imagination when it comes to what we expect from an album. It represents an artist taking full control of their career and narrative. It represents an artist releasing their art when they want, how they want, and where they want. The album was just as much a personal triumph as it was an industry milestone. It brought back the idea of an album release being an event and focused on the album as a full body of work and not just a compilation of singles and throwaway tracks. It showed that music isn't something that has to be promoted. It's something that's created, released, and enjoyed. More artists became inspired to be more creative and control their album rollout on their terms while maximizing their creativity to do something unconventional. Beyoncé took her career to new heights and showed critics that she wasn't slowing down, but only getting started. In an industry that likes to push women over 30 to the background, Beyoncé pushed back on that idea tenfold. She was already an icon, but the self-titled album turned Beyoncé into a legend. At the end of the day, she changed the game with that digital drop. You know where you were when that digital popped. She stopped the world. Male or female, it made no difference. She stopped the world.
The world, come on.
And the world stopped.
Carry on.
Carry on. Excellent video essay. Who was this by? Make sure to check out their channel, PopNotes. PopNotes, y'all. Oh my God, they only have 1.44 subscribers, y'all. Check out PopNotes, y'all. This was an excellent video essay. This person put into words everything I was thinking. Because I was thinking the other day about, you know, the Beyonce album was my favorite album. I don't know where it falls now after Renaissance. But I was just thinking about how after that, it was like legend. So anyway, y'all, I'm just experimenting, reacting to different things, see if y'all, you know, like these little watch-alongs or whatever. Let me know what y'all think about this whole thing in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. It's your girl Kim B, watching your girl B. Thank you, Beyonce. Thank you so much for just continue to inspire creative people and just women and everybody around the world. And yeah, y'all, it's your girl Kim B. I will see y'all in the next one.